Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
The information contained within this podcast does not consider your personal circumstances and is of a general nature only. You should not act on it without first obtaining professional financial advice specific to your circumstances.
Paul Atherton is an ex-Wall Street advisor on a mission to help young people win back their financial power, wealth and security. He does this by helping them understand the hidden world of finance, risk and investments, helps them figure out how it impacts them, and to seize the opportunities to make it work to their advantage. This is Paul Street Journal. I'm here this morning with Paul Atherton. How are you, Paul?
I'm really well, Tim.
It's good to hear. I've heard the term emergency fund thrown around, and it sounds pretty important. I don't know what it is. Do I need one?
Yeah, well, I guess the clue is in the name, Tim, right? Yeah, it's there for the whole point of an emergency fund is to set up as an emergency. And part of the problem is, I think, is people don't set it up because we don't tend to plan for emergencies. We tend to plan or not plan our lives or just go with the flow, so to speak. But emergency funds are incredibly important. And what it's there for is, like the name says, it's there for those particular circumstances that you didn't plan for, but didn't plan for in such a way that they are disrupting to your cash flow, to your financial life. I'm going to give you a few examples. You know, it could be as small as the boiler blows up, or maybe your car breaks down, and it's enough of a financial constraint and problem for you that you don't know where you're going to get the money. That's really the test, is you don't know where you're going to get the money. Perhaps a more dramatic version would be you lose your job. You all of a sudden you're out of work and you don't know when your next job is going to come along. Potentially that could be many months away. So, when I talk to my clients and when I talk to anybody, one of the most important aspect to get down almost immediately is to start thinking about how you're going to save for an emergency fund. And one great thing about having an emergency fund is those that start doing it and building up an emergency fund feel a sort of real tremendous sense of relief because they know they've got something there that will be there for that rainy day. And we all know rainy days happen. And that relief is it's quite tremendous, actually. And you start walking around realizing, oh my God, I was having that low level of stress around me without realizing it until it's relieved. And I guess the first question that comes when we talk about emergency funds is, well, how much? How much do I need in my emergency fund? And generally my answer was anything is better than nothing, but I like to start with a minimum of 3 months. So if you think about that, 3 months, I should say, be more clear of this, 3 months of sort of a living salary. So if you're a single, maybe that's literally your salary saved away for 3 months. So you could live off that. Whatever it is, family, you come up with that budget, you know what your money is, you know how much you live off every particular month. Now you need 3 months of those. 3 months is a pretty good number because most people can get themselves sorted out within 3 months. Within a month, if it was only a month, that's a lot tighter. And of course, the vast majority of the people, I don't know if you know these statistics, they've been bounced around a bit, but people literally, I think it's over 50% of people have less than 1 week worth of money or cash in their account. And a lot just have nothing or less than nothing, just debt. So an emergency fund is very important, but the first step in that process of setting it up is knowing how much you need to save, or how much should be in that account. So 3 months is a minimum. Personally, I like to have a year because that's my sort of, paranoia. I like to think that, I could take a year off if I need to. And that's what an emergency fund does. And it doesn't have to be invested. You could put it, actually I would suggest it isn't invested. It's more of a cash instrument. You could put it in something very safe, like safe bonds, but somewhere very liquid. Liquid meaning that you can access it almost instantly. Okay, so the steps process is a 4-step process, I can say, about emergency funds. So the first is knowing the amount. The second one is, now that you know the amount, you've got to set up a separate account, right? So you just say mentally that it should be 3 months. If you have one account, that's also your living account, it's also your emergency account, it's also your investment account, it's also your fun account. Well, then you really don't have that saved away. So set up your separate account. put it aside, put it in an investment account, put, again, in safe money market funds or something like that.
Even in a separate institution to help you.
There's no need to go with the same institution. I think we sort of lumbered with this fact that we really need it. Well, look, today's day and age where everything's electronic, we can set things up very simply. Often separate institutions are better.
And you can set them up as an online account attached to a card from a different institution, for instance.
That's absolutely correct. Maybe that'll give you some sort of psychological barrier there too, which is quite important. Okay, so you set up, your amount, you set up a separate account, maybe, like you say, suggest him, and even at a separate institution. Well, how do you build it? Well, it's very, very important. You have to have a process because, it doesn't build itself. This is where automation is your friend. And you can have it automatically paid out of your account. And I like to talk to people and say, just think of it as a tax. Taxes are raised, you just deal with it, right? That's life. Well, just put this little tax on yourself. And the great news is that tax goes to the fund of yourself rather than building roads or whatever that the government does with it. So that little tax set aside. Start small. Just start. You don't really feel much of an impact and you'll get comfortable with it and you can ratchet up over time. So automation is such a powerful tool because like a lot of things in life, on the negative side, we often set up automatic payments, don't we, to pay for our regular things like Netflix and Spotify. And, and over time we go, oh my God, I've got 20 of these and some I never use. Right, we'll set up one that goes directly to yourself. All right. So what's automation? So we know our amount, we've set up a separate emergency account, and we're now automating our regular flows. Well, the next one is what I call leveling up. So what does that mean? Well, that means, again, we started small, we know a small amount, but actually where can we get more money into that? And people can be quite creative here. Maybe you've got stuff around the house that is just old, you can eBay it. You can sell things, you can stale things that are never used, remove them. A lot of people do little side businesses nowadays to start putting, and they put it all aside in a separate account. I've got a friend that has a little Amazon business on the side. He sells stuff through Amazon, and it's it's not going to make him $1 trillion, but it makes him a decent amount of money, and he doesn't need it, so he just puts it aside, puts it in that separate account, and that builds up an emergency account. And again, Tim, you won't believe the positive impact that has onto your mental well-being. And after all, that's probably one of the most important aspects. So there you go. So I'm a big fan of emergency funds. There's a 4-step process. I've written a blog about this, but you can hear it live here.
Oh, good. And thank you for talking with us today. It certainly seems as if I actually had something very similar to this. So I feel very comfortable knowing that I should have.
Did the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Great, Tim. Thank you.
Bye. Paul Street Journal.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.